Life Audio.
Welcome to the Team Us podcast, where we share how grace, commitment, and cooperation can help couples live the everyday moments of marriage together. Hey everyone, we're Ted
and Ashley Slater. Valentine's Day is often viewed and marketed as a holiday of grand gestures, but it doesn't have to be. Listen in as we share 4 steps to help you have a no-pressure Valentine's Day this year. So Ted.
Yeah, I like that you brought up no pressure. I'm looking forward to something no pressure.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry for
Yes.
interrupting.
Okay. Well,
yes.
Good. So you're already invested in the topic.
I'm already listening. Yes.
Well, when I mentioned
and invested.
Yeah. When I mentioned that we were going to record a Valentine's Day episode, the first thing you asked me was if Saint Valentine had ever gotten into a fist fight.
Oh yeah, he's the man. He's the pugilist.
Well, as with many of your questions, I did not know the answer, and I had to do some research.
And I didn't really know. I mean, there's this, what do you call it, this thought that maybe he got in a fight because he was like so animated about his doctrine.
Well, I discovered that there's no recorded history of him getting into a fist fight. But here's the thing. I also discovered that there's 2 different guys that could have been St. Valentine.
No, you're breaking all my visions is the wrong word. What's the right word? My thoughts about Mr. Valentine.
Well, okay, here's the deal.
Yeah.
There are 2 accounts of Christian martyrs named Valentinus who lived in the 3rd century. And in trying to make sense of the 2 accounts, it seems like, when I was doing research, it seems like it's difficult to separate what is actual history and what's legend.
Oh, come on.
But in most cases, or in both cases, I should say, Valentinus was a Roman cleargyman.
This is his first name or his last name?
That was
his name. Okay.
I don't know. You're asking me another question that I don't have the answer to.
Let's pause. We'll do some... Go ahead.
We'll just go with it. Okay. So in one account, Valentinus was a priest who defied Roman Emperor Claudius II by helping Christian couples marry and giving out paper hearts to the couples to remind them of God's love.
Okay, I think I've heard of that one.
Yeah. And see, Claudius had outlawed marriage because he thought young men were better soldiers if they didn't have loved ones at home to worry about.
Okay.
So, like, the stories didn't seem to agree on whether this Valentinus attempted to get Claudius to convert to Christianity, and Claudius executed him in response for that.
That's kind of a severe response to evangelism, but okay.
Or if Valentinus was martyred during a period of persecution against Christians because he refused to deny Jesus.
Got it. In either case, he was injured, like fatally injured because of his faith.
Right. Okay, so then there's a second account of another man named Valentinus, who is the Bishop of Terni and was also martyred by Claudius II during this period.
What?
And apparently, according to legend, because I told you it was really hard to kind of separate history from myth and legend here, the phrase, "from your Valentine," came from this Valentinus. Apparently, he wrote a letter on his execution day to a child he had healed from blindness and signed it, "From your Valentine."
Oh, come on. That's heartbreaking.
Right. Well, whatever the case is, and whichever Valentinus it is that the feast of St. Valentine is meant to remember and honor, St. Valentine's Day started being observed in the 8th century on February 14th because that was the day he was martyred and buried. Yes.
So it's like celebrating recognizing somebody's death?
I guess, like...
Or exiting the scene?
Right.
No more Valentine, so let's celebrate Valentine.
So, long answer short.
Too late. It's a little long, but go ahead.
There may have been, or, anyway.
There may have been a couple of them.
There may have been no recorded fist fight that I could find, but blood was involved.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. But here's the thing. It wasn't until the Middle Ages that St. Valentine started to be associated with love.
Huh. Even though one of him was like in trouble for his stance on marriage.
Right. I mean...
Being so pro-marriage. Huh.
And going against the emperor. Yeah.
That's right.
So apparently it was the result of Chaucer's poem, Parliament of Fowls, written in 1375.
Whoa.
An article that I read over on historyhit.com notes that in this poem, Chaucer linked courtly love with the celebration of St. Valentine's feast. And he wrote, and this is an old English, so hopefully I read it correctly. For this was sent on St. Valentine's Day, when every fowl cometh there to choose his mate. In this poem.
All right. So since at least 1375, this has been a thing. Valentine's Day.
Well, we're getting there.
Okay.
Yeah. I guess nobles were then inspired and started writing poems called Valentines to their love interests. But here's where it turned into the Valentine's Day we know today.
Oh, no.
And that's in 1913. Oh, no. Hallmark added Valentine's Day cards. And
now,
February...
was this Mr. Hallmark or St. Hallmark? Were there two of them? Did they fight?
Like the card company Hallmark?
Oh, okay. Not St. Hallmark.
No. Hallmark added Valentine's. You're just messing with me, trying to throw me off here. Anyway, February 14th has never been the same since Hallmark added Valentine's Day cards. So Valentine's Day went from initially being a day to remember St. Valentine's martyrdom to a day our culture celebrates love. There is some weird feast, pagan feast that was celebrated way back when, but I was like, I'm not going there.
Okay. But in either case, it's an opportunity to affirm love.
Right.
And marriage.
Yeah.
Good.
And it feels like, nowadays there's a lot of pressure for couples to kind of go big or go home on Valentine's Day.
I felt that.
Have you?
I have felt that.
How have you responded to that?
I've envisioned myself going big and then ending up going home.
You froze under the pressure.
Yeah, froze under the pressure. Mm-hmm. I think I've probably done something for Valentine's Day in our 3 years of marriage.
Yes. I remember one year, I think I was visiting my family and you sent me flowers.
Okay. That was so thoughtful.
Yes, it was very thoughtful.
Huh.
That might be it.
Well, shall we continue with the show?
Yes.
I think we've got some fun things to discuss.
Yes. Okay, well, after a short break, we'll come back and we'll share 4 ways you and your spouse can have a no-pressure Valentine's Day, because the point of this episode is to talk about how it doesn't have to be high pressure and stressful. So we'll be back in just a minute.
Christian parents, what college will prepare your student to compete with the best while encouraging them to love their country and grow in their walk with Christ? Patrick Henry College. Located in Northern Virginia, Patrick Henry College is the place for high-achieving, conservative Christian students. Already a top pre-law college, PHC has another one-of-a-kind program, Economics and Business Analytics. EBA takes your business-minded STEM student and produces a graduate capable of servant leadership at the highest levels. Find out more at phc.edu/EBA.
So Valentine's Day doesn't have to be high pressure.
Thank you. End of story.
We're done.
Us time challenge.
Yes. Well, today I have 4 steps to help us have a no-pressure Valentine's Day.
Cool. Let's do it.
And maybe listeners will find these
so we can make
helpful
Valentine's special without the pressure.
Right. Okay. So 1, keep February 14th in perspective.
Okay. What do you mean by that?
Well, as spouses, it's important that we express our love and devotion to each other every day.
Mm-hmm.
So like a practical way to do this is to learn our spouse's love language and speak it regularly. If you're listening, you don't know the love languages, they were developed by Dr. Gary Chapman, and they are words of affirmation, quality time, receiving gifts, physical touch, and acts of service. And I think that Valentine's Day takes on a lot less pressure when we're consistently showing love to each other throughout the year, because we don't feel like we have to prove anything.
So Valentine's Day could look like any other day.
Well, okay, here's the thing.
Yes.
I think that any opportunity to celebrate love and marriage, why not celebrate love and marriage? So if I'm doing the
dishes, I can look over at you and I'll say, oh, dang, I just remembered it's February 14th. I can say, Happy Valentine's Day, I love you. I'm doing dishes. Will that work?
I think I would know you were phoning it in. What I'm saying is that I think, a lot of pressure on Valentine's Day is this: you have to do these grand gestures to prove how much you love your
very
spouse.
Out of the ordinary. Right, to prove your love. Okay.
Right. But if you're showing your love day in and day out, then you don't have to prove it on Valentine's Day, which takes a lot of pressure off just right there, because you're not doing whatever you decide to do because you're trying to prove something. You're doing it because you want to do it.
See, that's good. Okay.
So just keeping...
It's not saying don't do something big and grand, but you shouldn't have the pressure on that particular day because you've been loving the whole year round.
Right. And if people like to go big and grand,
Sure.
and Valentine's Day is a good excuse to
Yes.
do it, then do it. But have
Absolutely.
fun with it. Take the pressure out and let it be fun.
No guilt.
Exactly.
That's good. Motivation is no guilt, but just have fun.
Right. Okay. So 2 would be to discuss expectations.
That's helpful.
So-
like when? Like on the morning of February 14th?
I would think that you need to do this in advance.
Advance is probably better.
Right. Yeah. Well, okay. Author.
Because, like, I'm envisioning, I'm totally going off on a tangent here. I'm imagining on February 14th in, like, the mid-morning or early afternoon saying, so let's talk about expectations for today. What do you want to do?
Yeah. And then you're like, well, we're not eating any place because every place is
Everything's
full.
reserved, right?
Yeah. Okay.
That's good. Expectations before the day.
Yes.
That's good, of course.
So, I mean, author, researcher, and speaker Shanti Feldhahn says, happy spouses help create happy marriages. Makes sense, right? And it turns out that one of the things that will keep you happy, and thus your marriage happy, is avoiding a situation where you are likely to experience unmet expectations.
Unmet expectations. So that's why you discuss them. So they're not surprised. They're not unmet.
Yeah, because I
know what's
think
going on.
when it comes to celebrating or not celebrating Valentine's Day, whatever a couple lands on, one issue that often happens is that we don't clearly communicate our expectations to each other. Like one or both of us might hope for specific plans or a particular gift, but we fail to share those desires.
Okay.
And I think that the assumptions and guesswork that come with not clearly communicating expectations can make Valentine's Day feel like a much higher pressure holiday than it needs to be.
So we can talk about like a meal or an outing or something.
Yes, and I will get to this in soon.
I like where the conversation's going.
Yes. But I mean, okay, so last year
Yes.
we went to this little hole in the wall Chinese place.
Yes.
And you looked at me. It was Valentine's Day.
It was Valentine's Day. It was literally a hole in the wall. It was tiny. They had maybe 2 tables because it was not meant as a sit-down restaurant. It was like, get your food, put your bag on the table while you're waiting to leave, and then go. But we stayed and ate there.
Yes, but you looked at me when we sat down and were waiting for our food.
On Valentine's Day.
On Valentine's Day. And you said, this is not for Valentine's Day. I went, huh?
Because it
But-
wasn't a grand gesture. It was a little hole in the wall.
Right. But I was like, but it
Takeout, mostly.
is Valentine's Day. And I think I said to you, Valentine's Day isn't about it being big and fancy. It's about us spending time together.
Yeah.
But because we hadn't talked about that, you thought that I had certain expectations of what Valentine's Day
So
should
please
look
don't
like.
consider this non-grand gesture as a Valentine's thing.
Right.
That's kind of what I was saying, I think.
Yeah. But
Okay.
see, I think because we didn't talk about it, we came to it with different expectations or different expectations. You were like, this is not for Valentine's Day because it doesn't measure up. And I was like, this is for Valentine's Day because we're spending time together.
That's good. That's good. That was just last year?
That was last year. Yeah.
So we continue to improve?
We are learning. Yes. And so when it comes to Valentine's Day, I think, discuss expectations. And I think that the keys to that are to be honest and open-minded.
What if I said as my expectations, this year I'm kind of wanting like for you to make me a nice meal. We'll eat it in front of the TV. We'll watch some romantic Christian movie.
I'm laughing because do we watch romantic Christian movies?
Sure, that one with romance in it.
Okay, you're totally taking us off track.
I am
here.
sorry.
Okay, so I don't think the step of discussing expectations will work if we're not honest about what we want. So say that that's really what you want.
Okay.
Then you need to be honest about it. But here's the thing. Say that that's not what I want.
Right.
I don't know what I want. I got to think about it. But I need to be honest and not just say, okay, that sounds good. Let's do it.
You might say, hey, let's do that some other time for Valentine's Day. Maybe take me out to a restaurant. That would be nice. But maybe the next week after that, I'll make a nice meal. We'll watch a show and eat in front of the TV.
Right. Well, at least I need to be honest if I don't want the same thing, because
then you'll resent me.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. Good.
So I think that you have to be honest, even if you think your spouse might not want to hear you saying, no, I don't want to do that.
Right. And it doesn't need to be a no. You don't have to say no. There will never be a time I make a meal for you.
It could be, well, that sounds good, but what about this? This is what I was thinking. Because you have to have both of your preferences on the table. And I think that's where it also comes in, the open-mindedness. Be open, have an open mind to what your spouse wants to do if it differs from what you want to do.
And our thing that we've discussed before about making decisions, if we both have a little bit of an opinion about something, is for us, we do the 51-49. Like, you're like, Valentine's Day, the day actually means a little something more to me than it might to you. So I would tend to defer to you. Not as a wimpy man, but as a decisive leader of this household, I will say, I defer to you.
Yes. Unless you're having a day and you're like, I just don't want to do that. You have those.
I do have those. Yep.
Okay, so put Valentine's Day in perspective. Discuss expectations.
Expectations, definitely.
You're just going to talk with
over
me.
You?
Yes. Okay. And 3, develop a shared plan. So this is where that 51-49 can come in at some point. But now it's time to take the expectations that were expressed and turn them into a clear shared plan. And I actually asked my friend Rose.
Shout out.
Yes, shout out to Rose. She's awesome. How they keep Valentine's Day no pressure. And she shared, I've learned that as a team, we can talk through what each of us thinks that holiday should look like. So that's setting the expectations, right? And then she said, and the best experiences happen when we actually make a plan together.
Interesting. So it doesn't have to be, hey, I've got a surprise for you. Wait until Thanksgiving. Wait, where are we? We are in Valentine's now, aren't we?
Yes.
We're not in November.
No.
Wait until Valentine's Day and you'll be surprised. It doesn't need to be that way.
Right. I mean, maybe someone loves surprises and they're like, hey, surprise me. Maybe there's a couple where they're really in tune.
And that's their plan.
Right. So I think when you get here, you think about the expectations that were expressed by both of you.
Right.
And then you figure out where your expectations meet. So maybe you both know that you want to go get dinner somewhere.
Sure.
So that's a point of agreement. And so you can start there and figure out, okay, what do we want to eat? Where do we want to eat? You could ask yourself questions like, is there a place that holds special memories for us that we'd really love to go back and eat at? Or do we want to be adventurous and try someplace new?
Sure.
Or do we want to eat at a restaurant or order in? Or do we want to go on a different day because Valentine's Day is busy and who wants to go to a restaurant on Valentine's Day? We usually, aside from the Chinese hole in the wall, which I don't think anybody else was there.
No, it was not very.
If there's a place we know is going to be busy, we go a different day.
Yeah.
So I think you take those points of agreement and you make a shared plan, and that's where you can do the 49-51. Maybe one of you is like, oh, it really means a lot to me that we go to this restaurant. And the other one's like, well, I don't feel as strongly, so okay.
So let me throw out 2 things real quick. A meal isn't the only thing you can do on a Thanksgiving. Why do I keep going to Thanksgiving? I mean, I'm thankful for Valentine's Day.
Right. No, and that
doesn't need to be a meal.
It does not. That was just the example that came to mind. It could totally be something else.
And I'm anticipating some cynical men listening to us being like, oh, food. It's always got to be food. And I'm thinking, Jesus sort of modeled this for us, didn't he? Like when he had special events, special times with his friends, they'd eat, they'd chat, so there's something fellowshipy about eating a meal. So it's fine if I did it,
you did it again.
If Valentine's Day, I think it's because the part 2 is day. Valentine's Day, Thanksgiving.
Or you're just in denial. You're like, no, Valentine's Day.
I will refuse Valentine's. So, yeah, I think eating a meal on Valentine's Day is fine. Just Jesus ate meals.
And people who know me really well, like you, understand why I go to a meal, because when we go on vacation, I sometimes plan our things around, where can we eat?
Where can we go? Right.
I like food.
Well, it is nice when you can just enjoy a conversation without having to worry about food preparation, cleanup, that stuff.
Right.
So it makes sense to have somebody do all the work for you.
And leftovers. It's like you get more than one meal.
We do. Yeah, that's us.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
the last step.
Oh, there's a fourth step.
There's a fourth step.
All right.
Did I say 3 earlier or 4? I don't know. There's 4 steps.
3's a good number. Let's go with
Okay.
4.
Go with the flow. So sometimes our plans go like clockwork. We come up with a plan, it happens. But a lot of times they don't. So be ready to go with the flow. Like if the restaurant, back to food again, you plan to go to has a 3-hour wait, or you decided to go another day and they're closed, go with it. Or say you decided to do something else like go on a hike and it rains.
Don't get all upset. Don't punch walls.
Right. Or what if you have kids and one of your kids gets sick, or one of you gets sick and you have to postpone?
That's a good point. Yeah,
don't
stuff happens.
Don't let circumstances steal your joy. Remember that Valentine's Day isn't a day to prove your love. It's another opportunity to celebrate it.
That's great. And of course, I hesitate to use the term Christian fatalist, or that I'm resigned to circumstances maybe changing outside of my control and believing that God has a hand in it. But I'm kind of there. Like if we had planned a hike and it started raining, I'd be like, well, this is God's will. Let's do something else. Let's get umbrellas or something.
Yeah. So just,
Go with the flow.
Be flexible. I mean, we're not huge Valentine's Day celebrators.
I am.
Anyways.
This year I am.
Because it's no pressure.
Just you wait. No pressure.
Last year, and then we have to wrap this up.
Wrap it up.
Last year, this might be one of the most romantic things you have done on Valentine's Day or around Valentine's Day.
What did I do?
You came home.
Is that one time we kissed?
You came home from, let me tell the story. You came home from the grocery store with a box of those hearts that have the little sayings on it.
Yes.
What are those called?
Yeah, those little candy hearts.
You came home and gave me a box of candy hearts. It's still on my dresser. It's probably, or my desk. It's probably really stale because it's been there for a year. But it was just kind of this, the sentiment was sweet. It showed you were thinking of me when you're at the grocery store. It was
lighthearted.
Not a grand gesture. It was a tiny, small, little thing that meant a lot.
There you go.
So to recap, here are 4 steps to have a no-pressure Valentine's Day. 1, keep February 14th in perspective. 2, discuss expectations. 3, develop a shared plan. And 4, go with the flow. So we're going to take one more break, and when we return, we'll be back with this week's Us Time Challenge. So for this week's Us Time Challenge, discuss your expectations for Valentine's Day and develop a shared plan.
Super practical, super fun. I think this Valentine's is going to be the best yet.
Nice. All right. Well, thanks for joining us on the Team Us podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the podcast, and we'd love to have you leave a review over at Apple Podcasts. We're looking forward to next time as we keep talking about how grace, commitment, and cooperation can help couples live the everyday moments of marriage together.
Team Us with Ted and Ashley Slater is a production of Life Audio and Salem Media. If you liked what you heard today, please take a second to rate and review the podcast in your favorite podcast app so that more listeners like you can find the show. For more faith-filled, inspirational podcasts, visit us at lifeaudio.com.
Hello, I'm Adam Comer.
And I'm Ryan Chittister.
And we are the host of Life After Addiction podcast. What we believe is that addiction is not a surprise to God.
That's right. We discuss addiction from a biblical worldview and how true freedom comes through a personal relationship with Jesus Christ.
Absolute freedom from addiction. The secular worldview of once an addict, always an addict is just not true. If you or someone you loved struggles with addiction, subscribe to Life After Addiction at lifeaudio.com.